First, it has become obvious in recent years that food crisis and food insecurity have a direct impact on stability, on social stability and security. So this became evident in 2007 and 2008 when there was food prices spike. And after that, there were food riots and protests in 48 countries all over the world. And later, in 2011, there was another historical peak in food prices, and the result was social unrest that would eventually end up in regime change in countries like Libya, Egypt, and Tunisia. And what is interesting to note is that, for instance, in Libya, 90% of the grains that were consumed were imported. So this means that we're talking about a population that was extremely vulnerable to price shocks. And they felt the increase in grain prices, they felt it in their daily life. And it had a huge impact. So we can say that the surprises, they cannot be dissociated from food insecurity, especially in an urban environment where people are net buyers of food. And looking at Africa and considering the near future, I would say that there are two main challenges concerning food security. And this, if African governments cannot deal with these challenges, I believe that there will be regional and international consequences. And the first one is population growth. Population in Africa is expected to reach 2 billion by 2050. However, if current production levels persist in agriculture, Africa will only be able to produce 13% of the food it will need to feed its population. So this means that there are only two options: whether the governments import all the food that they need but they cannot produce, and this will make them extremely vulnerable to price shocks, or they have to drastically increase agricultural production, and not only agricultural production but also the affordability and the accessibility of this food for the populations. A second challenge that maybe it's more a sub-challenge than a challenge is rapid urbanization that is happening all across Africa. And in some urban centers, there's not, governments do not have the ability, and cities do not have the ability to absorb this rapidly growing population. And they cannot meet the basic demands of these people. And what happens is that in urban centers in Africa, population is growing even more fast in slums. So we are talking about a huge concentration of people that live in extremely adverse circumstances. And these urban dwellers, they are net buyers of food. They do not produce food, and they buy food, and they have to use a huge amount of their already low incomes in buying food. So they are the most vulnerable of the vulnerable to price shocks. And this may, in the future, contribute to widespread violence and even to a weakening of the central power and of the power of governments, because it's part of their job to create safety nets and to guarantee that there's food security. And if they do not fulfill that requirement, there will be more contestation.